I promised you 4 years ago that I would never lie to you, so I can't stand here tonight and say it doesn't hurt. The people of the United States have made their choice, and of course I accept that decision. But I have to admit, not with the same enthusiasm that I accepted the decision 4 years ago. I might say I have a deep appreciation of the system, however, that lets people make the free choice about who will lead them for the next 4 years. About an hour ago, I called Governor Reagan in California, and I told him that I congratulated him for a fine victory. I look forward to working closely with him during the next few weeks. We'll have a very fine transition period. I told him I wanted the best one in history, and I then sent him this telegram, and I'll read it to you. It's now apparent that the American people have chosen you as the next president. I congratulate you and pledge to you our fullest support and cooperation in bringing about an orderly transition of government in the weeks ahead. My best wishes are with you and your family as you undertake the responsibilities that lie before you, and I signed it, Jimmy Carter. I have been blessed, as only a few people ever have, to help shape the destiny of this nation. In that effort, I've had your faithful support. In some ways, I've been the most fortunate of all presidents, because I've had the daily aid of a wise man and a good man at my side. In my judgment, the best vice president anybody ever had, Fitz Mandel. I've not achieved all I set out to do. Perhaps no one ever does. But we have faced the tough issues. We've stood for and we fought for, and we have achieved some very important goals for our country. These efforts will not end with this administration. The effort must go on, nor will the progress that we have made be lost when we leave office. The great principles that have guided this nation since its very founding will continue to guide America through the challenges of the future. This has been a long and hard-fought campaign, as you well know, but we must now come together as a united and a unified people to solve the problems that are still before us, to meet the challenges of a new decade. And I urge all of you to join in with me in a sincere and fruitful effort to support my successor when he undertakes this great responsibility as president of the greatest nation on earth. Ours is a special country because our vast economic and military strength give us a special responsibility for seeking solutions to the problems that confront the world. But our influence will always be greater when we live up to those principles of freedom, of justice, of human rights for all people. God has been good to me, and God has been good to this country, and I'm truly thankful. I'm thankful for having been able to serve you in this capacity. Thankful for the successes that we have had. Thankful that to the end, you were with me in every good thing that I tried to do. There's an old Yiddish proverb that I've often thought of in the days and months that I've held this office. It says simply, God gives burdens, also shoulders. In all the days and months when I have served you and served this country, you've readily given me your shoulders, your faith, and your prayers. No man could ask any more of his friends. I've wanted to serve as president because I love this country and because I love the people of this nation. Just one more word. Finally, let me say that I am disappointed tonight, but I have not lost either love. Thank you very much.
For Carter, the next president of the United States, Ronald Reagan, apparently was winning 3 more states, according to our CBS News estimate. He is taking Delaware, Vermont, and Wyoming. So the electoral count now looks like 35 for Carter and some 238 for Ronald Reagan. As you can see, Ronald Reagan very close to the 270 he needs. We'll have more CBS News election night coverage in a moment. He may be running behind schedule as far as his appearances out there at the hotel go, but he's certainly running way ahead of schedule of the incoming votes tonight. As you can see, 275 electoral votes now. He needed 270 to win. It was Louisiana, according to our CBS News count of the states, that put him over the top. Louisiana's electoral votes, 10 electoral votes added to the 265 he had before. That's a total of some 26 states he has now won, 27 with Louisiana now, and 275 electoral votes to merely 35 electoral votes for Jimmy Carter. With a lot of states still outstanding, of course, Mr. Carter's numbers could increase considerably, but there's no way now, according to our CBS News estimates, he can overtake Ronald Reagan, and Ronald Reagan will become the next president of the United States.
WJKW TV8, Cleveland. Good evening again on this historic night. I'm Tim Taylor along with Judd Hambrick. Welcome back to our coverage of Election 80. The nation elected a new president tonight. Ronald Reagan's lead over President Carter is threatening to become a landslide victory. Ohio is solidly in the Reagan camp. In Cuyahoga County, a Democratic stronghold, Carter did do well, but obviously not well enough to offset the strong GOP vote downstate. Well, the evening ended early for President Carter. Shortly before 10 o'clock, he made his concession speech.
You know,
downstate. Well, the evening ended early for President Carter. Shortly before 10 o'clock, he made his concession speech.
You know, here we are. This is... We're all here but one now, and he was here, but they just took him off stage. It's way past his bedtime. But let me just say first of all, this has been, well, there's never been a more humbling moment in my life. I would have been not only humbled by the extent of what has happened tonight, even if it had been the cliffhanger that all of us, I think, were expecting, it would have been the same way, but just to have had the support of the people of this country. I consider the trust that you have placed in me sacred, and I give you my sacred oath that I will do my utmost to justify your faith. Earlier this evening, I spoke on the phone with President Carter. He called, John Addison called, but the President pledged the utmost in cooperation in the transition that will take place in these coming months. I offered him my own cooperation. He graciously said that he wanted this to be the
Governor Reagan, we just wanted to show you what the map of the United States looks like as of 8 o'clock tonight.
Hey!
It's all yours.
All right. When that began to slide, I thought that maybe the world was going out just as I was getting in. But anyway, as I say, the President was most gracious about this. And now all across America, there are some people that I owe a great debt of thanks to. There they are. They're meeting tonight in our national headquarters in Arlington, Virginia. The National Committee people, the dedicated professionals who've made the campaign run, and in every state, in the counties, the cities, and the precincts, to all of them who worked so tirelessly, literally hundreds of thousands of volunteers, and I've seen them at work throughout the country on this campaign. I just owe them an immeasurable debt of thanks. To George and Barbara Bush, our running mates down in Texas, no one has worked harder than they have. We only crossed paths a few times on this campaign and had to go out of our way to do it because their schedule was so heavy. And I can tell you that we're going to have a true partnership and a true friendship in the White House. And now, as I said before, my family. I'm so grateful to them for the love, for the support, and for the hard work, because some of them were out on the campaign trail easily as much as Nancy and I were. And speaking of Nancy, she's going to have a new title in a couple of months. And it isn't really new because she's been the first lady in my life for a long time. Now, we'll share that a little bit in the future. You know, Abe Lincoln, the day after his election to the presidency, gathered in his office the newsmen who had been covering his campaign. And he said to them, "Well, boys, your troubles are over now. Mine have just begun." I think I know what he meant. Lincoln may have been concerned in the troubled times in which he became president but I don't think he was afraid. He was ready to confront the problems and the troubles of a still youthful country, determined to seize the historic opportunity to change things. And I am not frightened by what lies ahead, and I don't believe the American people are frightened by what lies ahead. Together, we're going to do what has to be done. We're going to put America back to work again. You know, I aim to try and tap that great American spirit that opened up this completely undeveloped continent from coast to coast and made it a great nation, survived several wars, survived a Great Depression, and will survive the problems that we face right now. When I accepted your nomination for president, I hesitatingly, but I asked for your prayers at that moment. I won't ask them for this in particular moment, but I will just say I would be very happy to have them in the days ahead. And now just all I can say to all of you is thank you, and thank you for more than just George Bush and myself. Thank you because if the trend continues, we may very well control one house of the Congress for the first time in a quarter of a century.
Way up into the 400 category. It's going to be one of the major electoral sweeps of recent history. Certainly in this century, there's hardly been anything quite like this defeat that Jimmy Carter is taking tonight. He has won just 35 electoral votes, as you see. 415 have been won for Ronald Reagan. Just 4 states have gone to Jimmy Carter so far, and the District of Columbia for that total of 35 electoral votes. It certainly isn't very much. And of the states that we have been looking at, I haven't looked over the entire national board yet. I was just doing some quick running down of our states here. As I said, Carter is leading, but it's a very narrow margin in Maine, Massachusetts, and Tennessee, and we can't call any of those races for Carter yet. Even so, that would give him only 7 states. This one more than Goldwater won. Reagan is leading right now in North Carolina and South Carolina in the counted vote.
This portion of election night is sponsored by General Motors, people building transportation to serve people. By a company called TRW, where tomorrow is taking shape. And by Citicorp Traveler's Checks. Travel the world with us. Now from CBS News election headquarters in New York, here again is Walter Cronkite.
Well, back here at our election headquarters, we've finally gotten Governor Reagan over that 50% hurdle he's been holding on to for most of the evening in the popular vote across the country. With 68% of the vote counted now, he's gone to 51% of the vote. And Jimmy Carter has dropped to 42% of the vote from the 43 he was holding. Counted vote. Well, back here at our election headquarters, we've finally gotten Governor Reagan over that 50% hurdle he's been holding on to for most of the evening in the popular vote across the country. With 68% of the vote counted now, he's gone to 51% of the vote. And Jimmy Carter has dropped to 42% of the vote from the 43 he was holding. 6% of the vote going to John Anderson, as you see. Across the United States, though, where we show Jimmy Carter's states that he's won in red, you see there aren't many there, just 6 of them altogether. And for Reagan, well, it's a different story. They're shown in blue, and this country is almost solidly in the Reagan colors tonight. In the electoral vote, there's where the count really shows up. Reagan, 424 electoral votes, and Jimmy Carter, 45 electoral votes. There's a good question to be asked, I think, tonight. It's about time, that time of the evening, when we begin to look into this sort of thing. We maybe don't have answers yet. That'll have to be examined even more closely, but we've got some horseback opinions, I'm sure, as to why the polls over the weekend showed 2 and 3 percentage vote spread, maybe a little more than that in some of the more drastic ones, but nobody predicting an electoral sweep anything like this. Close electoral vote, it looked like. I wonder if any of our astute correspondents here have a quick answer to that one. I toss it up for grabs.
I think there were 2 things about the polls, Walter. In the first place, they were showing Reagan gaining. And in the second place, if his percentage holds at 52% and doesn't go to what is commonly called a landslide at 60%, you don't need to have a huge popular vote. His vote is wide, but not necessarily very deep. He hasn't taken a lot of states by huge margins, at least not so far.
Well, I suppose, Walter, that all of those people had been undecided for so long in the big states all went for Ronald Reagan tonight. It's kind of difficult across the South to analyze what went wrong in so many different groups, because Jimmy Carter did poorly in all groups except for blacks and Hispanics. He had a worse time of it this year with all groups, young, old, various incomes, in town, out of town, than he did in 1976. He just got whomped.
Leslie, you got an idea?
Yeah, Walter, you have to believe that it was what someone in the White House said, that it was, in fact, the hostages at the last minute. That here there was this break, but he didn't seem to be able to do anything about it at all. He looked impotent once again in the foreign affairs area. You know, this whole thing broke late. There's no question about that, I don't think. And what was the factor? It just stared us right in the face. It was Jimmy Carter flying back to Washington and then having to go out again to campaign. Just totally unable to do anything with this issue, reminding us that it's been there for a year and that he was totally incapable of moving us. I just do feel that in the end, the switch of votes was because of that one issue.
That's obviously a terribly subjective thing on the part of the population. However, I think everybody would have to admit there's really nothing that the president could have done about it in those last 72 hours to further the situation. I mean, he couldn't accede to all of the requests and get them back. It may take weeks and months to do that. Henry Kissinger is suggesting tonight, just for instance, that he thinks that Reagan being in the White House will help get them back, and he bets they'll get back shortly after the inaugural. Well, that's still some time. That means that Henry Kissinger must be thinking in terms of long negotiations in order to put this package together.
But Walter, when you say why did Jimmy Carter win, I think, first of all, I don't know that it's been said here tonight, that we should acknowledge that Ronald Reagan ran a smart, classy, high-road campaign. Not only did he fail to make a mistake, but he made a lot of the smart moves. Now, as we went along during the night making some notes, Jimmy Carter had no base or political message to offer the voters. Jimmy Carter, standing in the trial heats, consistently ran ahead of his job rating, and eventually the facts and his job rating caught up with him. Ronald Reagan used the debate to convince voters that he was not this mad Hollywood bomber from the West, that he was presidential, whether it was justified or unjustified. He convinced people of that in debates. Unemployment was the key issue all through this campaign, especially in the Midwest, where Jimmy Carter won only one state, Walter Mondale's home state, Minnesota. And then in the end, it was rejection of the party and the liberal orthodoxy that had been in the command through the 60s and the 70s. People simply wanted to change.
You know,